So let's talk about what actual hobbyists are trying to pick up with the Blood Angels release, and Games Workshop's curious decision to delay the release of the single most lucrative item. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today I thought I'd take one last look at the Blood Angels launch, going through all the things that are coming out for pre-order within the next 12 hours, and taking a look at a bunch of feedback and polls from you guys as to what you're actually looking forward to picking up. As we know, the Blood Angels first came out with their launch box with the Death Company chaplains and then their intercessors, dreadnought and upgrade sprues. Games Workshop generally tends to do army refreshes with a big launch box and then the individual kits to follow a few weeks later. And now this week is the time for the rest of the kits to come out, mainly a whole bunch of characters, though also their Sanguinary Guard. In this release we've got the Codex Supplement, Dice and Data cards, 2 generic characters in the Sanguinary Priest and Captain, 3 epic heroes in Astrath Lamates and the Sanguinor individually, the new Sanguinary Guard and the upgrades and transfers in theory to make Death Company, plus the actual Codex individually with the Dice and Data cards. There's also the release of the Benefactors and Jump Canoness for the Sisters of Battle, and the Genestealer cult, though the Chaos Lords seem to have been sidestepped for some reason. They really should have come out first, given that they came out in their battle forces first, but it looks like for whatever reason Games Workshop has decided to hold off. Overall, there's plenty of things that Blood Angels collectors were genuinely looking forward to getting their hands on, and we'll take a look at which are the most in-demand things in a second, but it's also with the caveat that they seem to be missing the single item that might have made them the most money out of any of these, with the Blood Angels Combat Patrol box set. We'll talk through each of the things individually, and as always, if you were looking to pick up a Codex or a new Shiny Sanguinor or one of the others, I do have the channel affiliate discount retailers linked down in the video description. In the UK, there's Element Games for 15% off, Australia has Gap Games for 21% off, Canada has Fenris Workshop for 10% off, there's 15% off for Wargame Portal in the USA, and Tasch and Geldeep in Germany and the EU has around about 16 to 20% off. It usually tends to be 20% off pre-orders. A big thank you to anyone who chooses to support the channel when you do pick up models from time to time. It is very much appreciated, and of course these save quite a bit versus Games Workshop's web store. These are the pre-order times they should be going live. It's usually midnight from Friday to Saturday Eastern Time over in the USA and Canada, then 10 AM in the UK and midday Australia Eastern Time for Gap Games. I'd imagine that most of these won't have quite so much sell-out demand compared with Battle Forces and things, though any individual discount retailer might be out of some stuff. I'm sure you might be able to find others to fall back on though. Starting out, we'll mention what's missing in the Combat Patrol box set. This one will have the new Blood Angels Captain, the 10 Assault Intercessors that you could field as Death Company, plus 2 sets of the Sanguinary Guard, now wingless and only in boxes of 3, plus the Blood Angels Upgrade Sprue. This will be £100, $168 or €130, discounted around about 27% or roughly 40% with the upgrade sprues included. It's an interesting box in that it's only 17 models, so it really doesn't feel very heavy on the plastic front, but really isn't too bad in terms of points per the money. And if you do want the new Sanguinary Guard, then this is probably the best place to get it, given that it's got quite a big focus on it. And I feel like for established Blood Angels collectors, the upgrade sprue and Captain is enough of a draw if you don't have them, and people might not have that money Death Company in the sort of Primaris chainsaw configuration. As mentioned, it did look kind of popular in my polls, which we'll get onto. As I mentioned earlier in the week, it does really feel very unhelpful that it's not coming out till later. I don't know whether it's just Games Workshop trying to get people to buy Sanguinary Guard and the Captain individually and not wait for the discount deal, but I'm not really sure if it would necessarily work out for them if so. We already know that it's coming, so I'm sure plenty of people will just either wait for this and maybe even lose interest in the interim. I really feel like this is one of the ones where they should have just released the box set at the same time. Otherwise, to rattle through the other releases quickly, we've got the Codex Supplement for Blood Angels, £20 or $35, and I guess quite a few collectors will already have one of these if they picked up the great big launch box. There's 3 detachments and a few datasheet changes such as Lone Operative Mephiston, and the changes to Death Company and Sanguinary Guard, though we did lose some iconic models such as the Librarian Dreadnought, Gabriel Seth, and the useful datasheet of the Jump Pack Sanguinary Priest unfortunately. It initially looks pretty powerful, points depending though. Liberator Assault Group with Advance and Charge just seems flat out scary, and it should mean that we find out points pretty soon for the Blood Angels. My guess would be on the 17th of October currently, alongside the more general 40k points update, though I guess we'll wait and see on that front. Otherwise, we've got upgrades and transfers for £21 or $35. I feel like either the launch box or the combat patrol will be the most efficient way of getting these, but at least they're a bit more generous than some of the previous Primaris upgrade sprues were. This one's got the Eviscerator for fielding them as Death Company. There's dice and data cards for around about £20 or around $35 to $38. The datasheet cards generally tend to go out of stock not too long after the codex comes out. The dice are sort of a red gemstone effect type one. And then we're into all the models proper. Lamatis and Asterath came out with the launch box, £28 or $45 individually. Lamatis' model was fairly well received, and it's generally been a pretty powerful model pre-codex at least. How good he is might depend on how strong the Death Company are now though. Asterath got a big glow up in the codex, now getting 6 attacks with that Executioner's axe and always allowing devastating wounds on the charge. Previously I thought he was a bit inferior to Lamatis. The Sanguinary Priest is quite a fun one. Seems that he is £25 or $40, so a bit cheaper than the Epic Heroes at least. He's got a good amount of customization with a few different heads and weapon swaps that you can do, and he gives you a 5+ feel no pain and extra AP. He's quite powerful with Assault Intercessors on foot. The Blood Angels Captain feels like the spiritual successor to Tycho. The Combat Patrol could be one of the best ways to get him when it eventually releases. He's £26 or $42. And he has a whole bunch of different war gear options. The Inferno Pistol is quite a powerful sidearm, and then beyond that it's a Power Sword, Power Fist, or a Chainsword. Captains on foot have generally tended to be pretty powerful for the Blood Angels as well. A great big turn of melee with a strength 10 Power Fist, and maybe 4 rerolls to wounds from Assault Intercessors can make a mess. The Sanguinary Guard were one of the less well received models out of the bunch. People weren't too happy that they lacked their wings, came in a set of 3 rather than a set of 5. And the bodies and heads just look a little bit Stormcast, particularly in their gold. They're at the price point for Games Workshop's 3 model box sets at £37 or $60, which for the vast majority of 3 model units never feels like a particularly good one. They do have a choice of spears versus swords though. On an individual level, they are a bit scarier, getting more dangerous melee profiles and 3 wounds with a 4+ invulnerable save, so sort of flying Terminators. Hopefully they do wind up being at least fairly powerful when the Codex drops. The Sanguinor's £28 or $45, generally a fairly playing it safe resculpt in a similar sort of pose to the last one. I feel like he's nice enough as the mysterious guardian angel of the Blood Angels with his fun big heroic intervention type move that he can do from off the board. I guess he'll be competing with Mephiston for that role now. And then finally we've got the slightly weirdly expensive Jump Caroness for the Adeptus Auroritas. And then the Benefactors for the Genestealer cult with its lethal hits and big damage psychic attack. Taking a look at some polling I did for previous Blood Angels polling for the channel, these are the box sets that are going to be most popular out of things to pick up at the moment. It seems that the single miniature that most people want to buy is the Sanguinor, with around 200 people saying that they wanted to pick up his model. The new Combat Patrol being in second place, but given it's so much more expensive, that definitely feels like the big ticket item from Games Workshop's point of view. Again, it's just a bit disappointing not to see that come out when hype is at its max with the Codex release. Otherwise, after that, the next most popular is the Sanguinary Priest. Quite a lot of people looking forward to adding an all very Blood Chalice Apothecary to their Blood Angels army and Primaris armour. And then after that we had Lamatis and the Blood Angels Captain. These are the numbers for people who want to buy at least one copy of each of these kits as reported by you guys. Aside from the ones that we've already mentioned, it seems that the slightly less popular offerings out of the bunch of them are Asterath, the Sanguinary Guard, and the Upgrade Sprue. I feel like the waters might be a little bit muddied by the various different discount offerings that they've got though. I guess quite a few people have already got Lamatis and Asterath from the Blood Angels launch box if they happen to pick it up. And for the Sanguinary Guard, you could potentially pick them up in the Combat Patrol box set as opposed to individually. Generally speaking though, pretty much most of their character releases seem to have gone down okay. People are just a bit less convinced about the boys in gold. I also did a poll for people ranking each model by its looks as well. For the winners here, it was a pretty close run race between Lamatis and Asterath, Lamatis being voted the single most popular new miniature. I feel like that one was quite a big upgrade on his previous model, which I must admit I wasn't the biggest fan of. The Sanguinor's not too far behind them as well, though it does seem that there's a lot of love for the all very dour chaplains. Around the same sort of level as the Sanguinor, we've got the generic characters, with the Sanguinary Priest on foot and the Blood Angels Captain. Both of those were voted in the mid-60s for looks. And then, as you'd expect, from all the online chatter, people just really aren't quite as convinced about either the Death Company or the Sanguinary Guard. Death Company really wanted their own unique models as opposed to intercessors and jump intercessors with an upgrade sprue with an eviscerator. Hopefully Games Workshop will be a bit more generous for them in future editions. And the Sanguinary Guard were voted the lowest out of any of them at 37%, not even being able to beat the upgrade sprue, it would seem. As you can see from the breakdown of the votes here, opinions on them seem to broadly range from aren't really too bothered by them to absolutely hate them, though it's worth saying that it's not absolutely universal. A few people think they look alright. They're certainly one of the models, though, that it seems that opinions at large have people look at the old models and look at the new ones and seem happy to tell Games Workshop that this wasn't quite what they had in mind for them. It's definitely not 100% unanimous, but with 60% of people saying that they preferred the old miniatures, despite them sort of crying out for a Primaris update for a while now, it does kind of show that people were none too pleased. It still seems that people's very favourite sculpts, though, were Mephiston and Dante, both of which I admit were done rather well, I think. Probably doesn't hurt people liking them in the fact that they're some of the biggest and most widely known characters out of any of the Blood Angels, though. Finally, when they do get around to releasing the Combat Patrol box set, I thought it would be interesting to see which people prefer out of the old one and the new one. And out of these two, it's a close-ish victory to the new Combat Patrol with the Captain and Sanguinary Guard. It's kind of interesting, that one, given that the old one was generally considered quite a good start collecting box set, but more for generic Space Marines as opposed to Blood Angels. The new one might basically have the new style Death Company, due to the upgrade sprues and new style Sanguinary Guard, both of which are models that aren't rated well for their looks, but it does look like an overall pretty useful box set for people getting into Blood Angels. 2 units of Dangerous Elites, potentially up to 4 if you wanted to equip the Assault Intercessors that way, plus a themed Captain. It does feel like a box set that's lost a bit in terms of weight of plastic, only being 17 infantry models, but also has gained a bit in terms of theme and the actual eliteness of the models. Those Sanguinary Guard do look like pretty powerful elites when they're fighting in melee in game. In any case though, I'll leave that there for this one. Let me know your thoughts as to the Blood Angels release. Which bits would you be tempted to pick up, if any of them? And what do you think the reason is for Games Workshop not having released the Combat Patrol right now? Is it just to push people to get more of the kits individually at a higher price? Or is there some sort of other reason? As mentioned, feel free to check out the links down in the video description if you do happen to be picking anything up. They save money versus Games Workshop and help to support the channel. Otherwise, I'll leave that there for this one. Feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see more like this. I'll hopefully be back for a general news roundup tomorrow morning, and hopefully talking about a few very snazzy 3D printed Blood Angels upgrades as well. Feel free to check back later if you'd like to see that. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and you can find that linked in the video description if you'd like to support the channel more directly. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things comes next on the channel, and automatic entry to the regular prize giveaways with the chance to win a few big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.